Guten Erev Shabbos, Parshas Yisro. Aseres hadvarim nichnu keneged asar ma'amaros shebahem nivra ha'olam, says a psikta. Anochi keneged yihi or, v'cheinu omer, v'haya Hashem lecha la'or olam. So we have the Aseres hadibros parallel to the asar ma'amaros shebahem nivra ha'olam. There is an enigmatic medrash that states the following. Rabbi Abahu Amar, Mitchilas bria sai shalolam, tzafa kadosh baruch hu ma'aseim shel tzadikim u'ma'aseim shel rishayim. V'ha'aretz haisa saihu, ze ma'aseim shel rishayim, v'yamer elikim yihi or, ze ma'aseim shel tzadikim. Aval eini idea be'eze mehem hu chafetz. Mimad echsiv v'yar elikim es ha'or ki tov, heve b'ma'aseim shel tzadikim hu chafetz, ve'enai chafetz b'ma'aseim shel rishayim. Translate, Rabbi Abahu said, in the beginning of creation of the world, Hashem foresaw the deeds of tzaddikim and the deeds of Rishayim. Va'arta sasayu, the world was tayu, this refers to the deeds of the Rishayim. And Hashem said, let there be light, this refers to the deeds of the tzaddikim, the righteous. However, I do not know which Hashem desires. From the pasuk that states, and Hashem saw that the light was good, it is clear that He desires the deeds of tzaddikim and not the deeds of Rishayim. How are we to understand the words of this medrash? What could be the question? Of course Hashem desires the deeds of tzaddikim. Why is it a question at all? So in this week's parsha, it's a parsha of Matan Torah. Am Yisrael received the Torah. On this day, the purpose for which Hashem created the world became an actuality. Bereshis, Rashi says, B'shvil ha-Torah shenikres Reshis. Further on, Vayhi erev vayhi vayker, Yom hashishi, and Rashi says, Yom hashishi, kulam tluyim va'omdim. All the days, it doesn't say ha by any of the other days with the hey hayidiyah, only by Friday. Kulam tuluyim va'omdim ad Yom hashishi, Hushishi b'sivan, hamuchan lematan Torah. The world at the time of creation was holding its breath, waiting for the 6th day of Sivan, the momentous and pivotal day on which Am Yisrael would receive the Torah. Indeed, as quoted above, the Aseres HaDibros are parallel to the Asar Ma'amaros, the 10 utterances through which the world was created. The root of the word Ma'amaros is Aleph Mem Resh Amar. The root of the word Dibros, Daled Beis Resh Diber. Both of the words connote a certain type of communication and speaking, but Diber is much stronger and intense than Amar. Dibros, thus, are much stronger than Ma'amaros. The reality of the Torah supersedes the reality of creation. Hashem looked into the Torah to create the world, and thus the Torah is the blueprint of the world. What's the difference between the two roots? We say, Hu Amar Elav, he said to him. Hu Diber Imai, he spoke with him. Ma'amaros, that seems to be a lashon that's more neutral, universal, less personal, whereas Dibros seem to be more intense, involved active participation, some kind of dynamic taking place. So right away in Parshas Bereshis, mankind is commanded to be actively involved and to participate in the development of the world, to build, to tame, to domesticate, and to achieve great things. Pruravu umilu es ha'aretz v'kivshuha urudu v'degas hayam v'ba'oif hashamayim v'chol chaya harimeses ala aretz. Do not sit by idly, but be actively involved in the domestication and utilization of the resources of the world in order to build and develop the world that we're in. How are we to do this? How are we to succeed in moving the world forward to become a more advanced and better place, a place of peace and prosperity, of values and quality of life? So we ponder and contemplate this question, because we see a world with our senses. and we try to digest and internalize and translate what's going on. We see people and their behavior, and we are very confused. We see a reality which seems contrary to the Torah, contrary to the Aseres HaDibros. It seems at first superficial glance that how does man succeed? Through the might of his hands. It seems that those that go dafka on a crooked path have a big head start, and they really get places. Chazal call it kol da'alim gavar, survival of the fittest. The righteous, they seem to be left behind, downtrodden, and nothing going for them. V'ha'aretz ha'sasayu, chaotic, Maaseh HaRashayim, it's a baffling place. It's confusing. It's confounding. How is a person to conduct himself, to succeed in this world and not to fail? We just said that there's a mitzvah to do something with ourselves in this world, to accomplish and to achieve goals. Vayares Elakim es ha'or kitayv. Here's the answer. Havei ma'aseim shel tzadikim hu chafetz ve'enoi chafetz b'ma'aseim shel rishayim. Hashem desires the deeds of the righteous. And, I capitalize, Hashem does not want the deeds of the Rishayim. And by necessity, we must say that this means that it's not real. The seeming success of the Rishayim is a distorted illusion of reality. In other words, to go against the Aseres HaDibros is to go against the 10 Ma'amaros, because they're parallel. The way of the tzaddik is a straight path of the Torah. And time passes like the blink of an eye, and the illusion of reality of the Rishayim completely dissipates, and the empire of evil disappears. Torah supersedes creation, and the way of the Torah is the way that prevails. It is timeless, eternal. And again, we pay attention to the miraculous survival of the Jewish people of Am Yisrael, tzadikim va'amech kulam tzadikim, defying time and all physical limitations. V'ha'aretz ha'sasayu ilu ma'asehem shel harishayim. The Shlach HaKadosh states that sheichad, or bribery, is makchish pamalya shel mala. We can expand on the term of sheichad to include all those illicit shortcuts of flattery, political manipulations and maneuvers, compromises and abuse. These shortcuts of the Rishayim, as the Shlach HaKadosh says, are all a direct affront to Malchus Hashem. Sheichad makchish pamalya shel mala. It's very fascinating to see these principles today come alive before our eyes. Let's go back to 1981. The date, Daled B'Nisan, April 8th. It was in the month of Nisan. For those of you that were born already and remember, we recited Birkas HaChama. This bracha is said on the completion of the 28-year cycle of the sun and the start of the new cycle. If you do the mathematics, that year 5740 divided by 28 gives us the end of the 205th cycle of the sun and the start of the 206th cycle. This Tekufa, or cycle, the new one, started in 1981 and ended Mamash Erev Pesach 2009. We all woke up early and we went to the Kotel. We live in the Rova. Interesting, the gematria of 206 is the same numerical value as Daber, Daled Beis Reish. And when we think back, those 28 years between 1981 and 2009, it's very apparent how appropriate this Daber is to encapsulate the essence of those years. And this I quote from Wikipedia: the official birthday of Internet is January 1st, 1983. Considering the enormous strides this planet made in those 28 years in the area of communication, one can almost say that a whole new world was created. The tools of communication that Hashem sent down to this world is staggering, mind-boggling. The capacity to reach out and affect people was so altered, it's hard to even think of what the world was like prior to this. And that takes us to 2009, when we finished the 206th cycle and started the 207th cycle. And in this time, we're still in the middle, the world has made many, many more leaps in quantity and in quality, whole new networking capacities, and also AI, artificial intelligence, and who only knows where all this will lead. But we say, Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov, ma'asehem shel tzadikim. Or, did you notice? The gematria of 207 is a gematria of Or. The dibur is the kli, and the Or, the content. And here again, I want to talk history. Have any of you heard the expression, les pantalons rouges, c'est la France? This is from the 19th century. The uniform for French soldiers back then were bright red pants. I mean, compared to today, uniforms they try to hide, camouflage. Even though it made them especially conspicuous targets, and people argued with them that maybe it wasn't the best thing, they didn't give it up. Why? It went against the very fabric of their flamboyant culture. And sure did it work against them. In World War I, this uniform, I quote Wikipedia again, contributed to the high French casualty rate. They were really easy targets with their pantalons rouges. So we know Hashem moves the world and calls the shots, as we say in Ma'ariv, B'chachma paisech sha'arim, b'svuna meshana itim, machlipes azmanim, misaderes ha'koychevim, b'mishmaresehem barakia. Hashem moves the world, we said. What happened on Shabbos Simchas Torah? The Hamas Yimach Shemam, they were wearing body cameras. They were intoxicated by their heinous massacre, the horrible, horrific deeds that they did on Simchas Torah. And they sent the videos out to the entire world to see, thus doing the best possible job of incriminating themselves and their evil partners, UNRWA. What do we say about that? We say, Yipol b'shachas yif'al. Bor kora vayachparehu, Yipol b'shachas yif'al. They fall into the very pit that they dig. And also, what about those Ivy League universities? The alumni are always boasting their membership and their degrees. The administration, super sophisticated, their mask has been removed. And what's underneath? The ugliness of plagiarism, racism, and blatant anti-Semitism. You know, my father-in-law, Zatzal, he very much discouraged his children from going to Ivy League institutions. And don't get me wrong, he was very much interested that his children should get an education from a good school. But he said that a place of gaiva is fertile ground for all moral decay. So that brings us to today. Hashem has made everything so accessible, so easy, and so simple. No need for big buildings, no need for big budgets. The empires of yesterday, the global empires, and also local. Yeah, they're local empires. How were they built? With huge budgets, everything relative. Buildings, campuses, and so much energy had to go and went into public opinions and ratings. They made a lot of noise. But all these things we see today are so temporary and meaningless. For only Torah is or. only Torah endures. Sfas emes tikon la'ad, b'la sheker ein raglayim. This Shabbos, Be'ezus Hashem, we bench Rosh Chodesh Adar Aleph, and this year we have 2 Adars. And just like on Purim, way back, Kimu v'kiblu, the Jewish people accepted them upon themselves again the Oil HaTorah. May we all be zoche to be mekabel the Torah now, and to be zoche to mapalas hamalek, roiv banav v'kinyanav al ha'etz talisa. The very tree that Haman had prepared turned out to be his own gallows. May we be zoche la'yehudim ha'isa oira, ein oira ela Torah. A guten Erev Shabbos, a guten Chodesh, and besuros tovos. Amen.